Hi, welcome to the award-winning Ed Brown Show. Happy New Year. We're going to begin this year with the OPAC group. I'm going to have this young lady, Mrs. Nicole Turner. Now, this young lady is a CEO, and you know how I'm crazy about CEOs. And she has written a book, and she has really looked at the economic problems that we have, here all over the United States. I mean, it's something that we need to really get into, and I'm just overjoyed that Ms. Turner is here. Ms. Turner, now you told me about OYAC. Tell us, how did you come up with that name?
So the OYAC group, the O stands for organizational efficiency, the Y stands for yields, the A stands for achievable, the T stands for targets. So organizational efficiency yields achievable targets. If organizations aren't efficient, then they're not meeting their bottom line. So I go in to help them assess where their deficiencies are to make them become more efficient. So that's how I came up with the name.
And you did that all by yourself,
I
huh?
did, all by myself, yes.
You decide someone would always want to know what it means.
They do always want to know.
Always.
Because it's an odd name. When you see OYAT, you're like, one, how do you pronounce it? And two, what does that mean? So, yeah.
Being a CEO, I think the title is, in fact, on one of my birthdays, my children gave me a plaque with CEO on it.
Because you are a CEO.
So they decided to do something. But really, seriously, I really like your plan for the youngsters because they are the future. And we have to prepare them. And in this society, economics is number one. Economics affects everything.
Absolutely.
It affects anything in this society that you're going to get involved in. I want you to begin to tell us, how do you do that? With so many negative things going around.
So one of the things that the nonprofit that I'm in the process of creating is going to focus on is my targeted audience are preteens, teens, and young adults. And my 5 pillars or tenets for that nonprofit are entrepreneurship. And why I chose that one first is because we don't teach the younger generation how to create jobs. We teach them how to get jobs. And when you think about the economic impact in moving forward and growing your dollars, it starts with having a business mindset. And then the next thing I teach them about or talk to them about or grow them with the nonprofit is leadership. Because you cannot be an entrepreneur if you don't have leadership characteristics. And then the third tenet is money management. Because you can make all the money in the world, but if you can't manage it, as we were talking earlier when we look at some of the athletes, they've made millions and millions of dollars, but they walk away broke.
Entertainers, athletes.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's important to teach them as you're growing your business, or even if you go into leadership positions within corporations, you need to be able to manage those dollars that you're making, because our parents can only teach us what they know, and because their parents only taught them what they knew. And a lot of times, especially in inner city schools, they are not getting the needed information about how to manage money, how to save money, how to invest, and put the dollars back into the communities and different avenues that you can use your dollars for. So I think it's important, because if you don't get it at a young age, it's not that you can't develop it later, but it's harder to move forward when you develop it later in life. So it's important to give that foundation very early on in life. And then the fourth tenet is self-esteem. Because if you don't believe in yourself and you don't have that esteem, how are you going to be successful in those other areas that I mentioned? And then the fifth one is empowerment, because you have to feel empowered that you can be successful.
Right.
And so those are the
confidence.
Things. Confidence goes a long way. If you have confidence, you can kick fear in the face.
Right.
And so it's important that they get that. And so that's those are the 5 things that my nonprofit will be focusing on for the younger generation.
How do you get this over? Just like you quickly gave us, the things that you need. How do you get that over to the parents and the generation that have youngsters in that age bracket?
Well, sometimes you have to educate the parents too.
Right.
Because every day is a struggle, and even though, there are a lot of people who are under the technical middle class umbrella, and as we know by the statistical data, the middle class is getting lower and lower and pushing further and further down, because people are barely making it. You miss one paycheck and
Right.
everything just spirals out
Paycheck
of
to
control.
paycheck,
So
right.
sometimes it takes also, as you're educating the younger generation, educating their parents along the way. It's not that people don't want to do better, they just don't know how to do better. So when you start to give them the tools, and one of the things you have to not do is not judge them, because when you make people feel bad about the situations that they're in, you're doing them a disservice.
You talk about the parents,
Yes.
not judge them. Just
Right.
okay.
Because oftentimes, debt is easy to get into, but very difficult to get out of.
Hey.
And people have already beat themselves up enough for being in a certain situation. And then you come in and you're trying to educate their children. But while you're trying to educate their children, they may feel like you're blaming them and you're
Yes.
judging
You're
them.
berating the parent.
Right. So you have to make sure you're
How
not.
do you do that? That's very sensitive.
Well, I think because one of the gifts and talents that I've been blessed with is the ability to reach people where they are and to be very compassionate and understanding. So it's really about how you approach the situation and how
Definitely.
you approach people. And so if you reach out to them with a gentle hand, 9 times out of 10 they will respond the same way. And again, like I mentioned earlier, most people don't want to be in that situation that they're in, but once you're in it, it's hard to get out of.
Yeah, because because of the financial, it's pressure. The financial pressure is on the parent for the basics. When you can't get the basics, like a roof over your head and the basics, that makes it difficult to get into the next step.
It does. And when you are struggling and losing sleep every night because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I got to keep the lights on, I got to put food on the table, I got to keep roof
Right.
over my head, but I love my children and they're going to school and their friends have this and their friends have that, and I want to be able to give them something, but I got to make a sacrifice in order to do that. It's very challenging. And when the bills are here, but the income is staying here, or some people who've lost jobs and had to get other jobs
You're
and
right.
income dropped by a third, it's very hard to manage. And so even with the parents, their self-esteem has decreased, and they're just trying to stay afloat. So sometimes when you're trying to teach the kids, you also have to teach the parents.
Well, how do you get the parent that over to the parent? Is that you can't just send Johnny or Sally to school, that you have to do some homework yourself. Because if you don't understand the fact of money management, then sending your child to Harvard doesn't mean nothing.
Absolutely. So with the parents, sometimes you just have to teach them the skills as well. If the kids are in a situation where the parents can't afford to send them to Harvard, they probably got scholarships to Harvard. And so for the parents,
Yeah.
the struggle is, well, how do I send them money, to pay their expenses while they're in school, to have money to eat if they don't want to go to the cafeteria, to have money to wash their clothes and entertainment. Now, those things can be something that the parents struggle with. But, I tell parents from an educational perspective, there are so many options out there now. Your kids can write essays and apply for different scholarships. We tend to neglect that there's so much from a STEM perspective for minorities. And the population of minority students who are really doing a lot in the science, technology, engineering, and math arena has grown exponentially. But a lot of times the parents aren't looking out there at the various scholarships, the various options. There are corporations who are willing to, pay part of that tuition if the kid does an intern during the summer, co-op or whatever. So if you're thinking about dollars as it relates to education, I think it's important to educate the parents that there are options out there beyond just you paying for education and getting student loans, because we know student loan.
Yeah, well,
my student loan debt is crazy.
Well, that's what most youngsters are, and some of the ones that struggle, with the student, they end up with a degree and a student loan, like a house note, and no job.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then the younger ones say, I don't want to go that route. Mom told me that Johnny the world will open up for him once he got an education. The education is the key. But it's more to that. Because if you don't have economic security, that makes those things secondary.
Yes. And even now when you look at a lot of the new startup companies, a high number of those people, they started out at those Ivy League schools and they dropped out. Because what they were creating in their dorm rooms was multiplying into dollars that a regular job could not give them with a degree. Which is another reason why it's important for my nonprofit to teach entrepreneurship and leadership and money management. Because yes, it's important to have education, but it's also important to educate our young people that you can be successful even if you don't have education.
Okay, I'm a student. Tell me how, first of all, I want to go in business. What are some of the things you would tell me to make sure that I get exposure to?
Well, first of all, it's important to know, what are you going in business for?
Money.
Okay, so how do you plan on making that money? Who's your targeted audience? What's your product? Is there a need for your product? But you have to do the research first. You know how many people go in business and in that first year, first 3 years of business, it's just collapsed because the research wasn't done in advance. You just knew you wanted to make money.
Right.
Well, everybody wants to make money,
right.
but everybody's not making money.
Right.
So, first of all,
how do you get into a market that's good that the large corporations have not taken over?
Well, the large corporations, they have a targeted group as well. But if you look at your general surroundings, where you live, your young people, where you go to school, where you attend church, the civic organizations that you're a part of, oftentimes the corporations haven't targeted that group. Once you get one big backer to be your champion for your product, it just blows up from there. So it's important to know what your competition is doing, know who your targeted audience is, have a plan and have a backup plan for that original plan. So for a lot of young people, they're like, okay, well, I don't know where to get started. But there's so many resources out there, like in Maryland, the Small Business Technology Center, right? It's free. Universities, it's free. Free is king. When you don't have money, free is very important.
Right.
You know, and some schools now have created curriculums, some, not many, or partner with organizations similar to the organization I'm creating to bring it into the schools to educate kids on how to be an entrepreneur, how to start a business, how to do your business plan, how to do your market research, how to, like I mentioned to you earlier this summer, well, actually it was back in March when I went to Disney's Dreamers Academy at Disney World, and I was amazed by the number of young people who had products that they had developed, had patents, had books, had companies. And these kids are so smart when it comes to computers. They can create an app.
Tell me about
in
it.
like a couple of hours, create an app and make $100,000 off of that app, which is very effortless for them because it's something they could do in their sleep.
And they enjoy, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So instead of thinking of it as just a way to entertain yourself, start thinking of those things that you do to entertain yourself.
Excellent.
Transfer that into things that make money for you.
Excellent, because that's what happened. Just like myself, you know, every time I look at it as an app, you know, and I said, well, the only thing that I'm interested in is Google and faxing, you know, texting and that type of thing. I can get the information, but it can be used, and youngsters are really astute. They can be used. Just like they use it with a game, they can also use it with business.
Yes. And that's what I'm saying. Those same things that they sit at home and play on the computer or play on their phone.
Right.
Turn it into a business.
And you're saying that discovering different apps is one of the things that they often do because it doesn't take a lot of money to do that. And it's something they enjoy doing.
And when I do vision board workshops, there's an organization called Pearls, and they have elementary school kids, young girls, and they invite me to come in and do vision board workshops. And when I'm talking to the young ladies about what they want to do, I'm always amazed at the passion that they have And so I try to tell them, you can start, I mean, of course, for those who want to be doctors and engineers, that requires some education, but for those who want to be designers.
Right.
Like I know of one young lady, she started her own jewelry line when she was 9 years old. There are some young kids who have actually, they're not even 16 yet and they've made millions of dollars. One young guy, he created bow ties. So if it's something that you're passionate about, if you're passionate about fashion, you don't have to wait till you go to college or graduate from high school to start. Just start now. You know how to make scarves? Make scarves and sell them to your friends. And then, like the young lady I told you who had the jewelry line, now her jewelry line is in stores. She's still in high school.
Right.
But her jewelry line is in like
is-
Macy's and Nordstrom's. So whatever you're passionate about, use that to follow your purpose, follow your passion. And I know some people are like, I hate it when people say follow your passion, but it's something you do all the time.
Well, one thing that youngsters have, they don't have the. I mean, they feel that if I fail, then it's all over. But isn't it? Some of them have to say to themselves, "Hey, look." Failure
Failure is part of the process. And
part of
in my
learning.
vision board workshops, I always do a motivational speak before
Yeah,
I start the
right.
workshop.
Okay.
And I told them, I said, I know you've probably heard that failure is a bad thing,
Right.
but failure is a
Exactly.
really good thing.
Right.
If you're not failing, you're not succeeding. Because if you're not failing, you're not trying.
That's my point.
So
is that,
I overemphasize
Yeah.
that because we're programmed,
Right.
even as a child, I was programmed that failure was a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
right.
you have to shift the mindset. Failure is not a
That's
bad
so
thing.
important because they discourage a youngster or anyone from continuation. Whereas if they had stayed with another step, they would have
would
been
make
a big difference because from failure you learn. It's a learning tool.
Yep.
But the thing that I think is so very important in that age bracket you're saying 14 to
Well, see, my nonprofit is going to target before you get to teenage. It's going to be preteens, teens, and young adults. Because really the foundation starts before you hit
yeah.
high school.
Right, definitely. But another thing I like what you emphasize is that you don't have to go to college.
No.
See, you emphasize that, and parents have done that too to the youngsters. Say, well, you have to get a degree, but it's so much
Yep.
money made.
And I was a college professor for 9 years, and I'm saying you don't have to go to college
Yeah.
to be successful.
Right. See, that's one of the hurdles that youngsters have. Well, I failed ACT, whatever test it is, so.
The ACT,
Yeah,
SAT.
right. And I don't think that I can be successful, but they have to build confidence in themselves.
And I think a lot of times they overlook the blue collar jobs. Do you know how much money is in the blue
Right.
collar construction? Like when I think about the building of the MGM
Right.
Grand Casino, you have that construction contract. Do you know how much money? Like I have a coworker who his father owned dump trucks,
Yeah.
and he had contracts with the state of Virginia. People don't. That's blue collar, but he was making money hand
Right.
over fist.
Exactly.
So just because you didn't go to college, you don't have to focus
Well-
on the
well,
white
I think-
collar
I
careers.
think some of them, and parents are responsible for that because they are in a society where they get education. Although the child might have other talents that are associated with blue collar, it may be a heck of a bricklayer or anything like that, And
If you know how to lay brick, you know how to build houses.
Yeah.
You know how to build houses, you can get contracts to build communities.
Right. But I think the generation now, they've been pushed to the college. And I say, really the community college, the 2 years, I think is a good idea. That way the youngster can find themselves. If they want to go on, then they can go, and they already have one degree. But a lot of youngsters don't know what they want to do till they're exposed to it. And once the community college expose them to it, and I don't think that the community college is emphasizing enough blue collar. Because every kid, first thing the kids say, here it comes. They see adult, what college are you going to? What are you going to major in? And then I hadn't thought about college. I want to be a bricklayer. You know what I mean? And then the blue collar aspects of it is it's not accepted.
Let's think about moving companies. You know, all government agencies, they move
Right,
to different
right.
buildings, they move their facilities within the building. They have to hire a moving company to do that.
Right.
Can you imagine owning the moving company that has the contract
Right.
to do that? That's
Right.
blue collar.
Yeah, that's blue collar.
But that's a lot of money.
That's my father always. I was telling him about him with the trash thing. Well, the same thing. He hauled trash, and what he did, he moved people from apartment to apartment, and that type of thing. You see what I mean? But people have a tendency to steer the youngsters away from the blue collar aspects of
Yes.
making money, and they make more money when you look at percentage wise than any other college professors are yelling, "Hey, you're not paying me enough."
Right.
You know what I mean? And blue collar. That's what I was saying with the MGM project down there. I visited the community college, and I wondered just what they were training. Sure, a CEO job is fine, and you know that's what you like to have. But usually, you have to work up to that point. You have to work up to the point of gaining experience in the industry. See, that's the key. And hey, make sure that we have time about managing money because it starts early. Tell us about it.
So, you know, if you're not taught that if you make $1, save
Yeah.
half of that.
Right.
You know, we're often taught, oh, I got to get those labels, those
Yeah.
Jordans or those Louis Vuitton or whatever. So we're in the minority community in particular, you know, it's all about being recognized by other people.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that being recognized by other people is what we wear, what we drive, and where we live.
Hey.
So if there's no return, like I don't do labels. I tell people, why should I do labels? There's no return on my investments on those labels.
Right.
And so if we have to teach them that don't spend everything that you make. You know, you need to invest that money. You need to save
On
that
allowance, I tell my grandchildren, I said, hey, look, make sure you put some of that away. I don't care if it's $2, make sure never spend all your money. You always.
I remember when I was in undergrad, there was this lady who donated several $100,000 to my university. Older black lady, she was in her, I think she was in her 80s. She used to iron clothes for a living. She used to do housekeeping.
Iron clothes for a living. Yeah.
In order for her to have hundreds of thousands of dollars to donate to the university, she had money management skills.
Right. Well. That's what I'm saying. How do you teach that when you have the industry out there blasting about the?
It's hard.
It's
hard.
That's
going to take more effort.
Yeah, because you know.
Especially with reality TV showing them all these things
Yeah,
that you should
right.
have. Yeah, that's going to take more effort.
Well,
but if you catch them younger,
and that's what your organization is doing.
Catching them younger.
You're catching them younger and teaching them money management. And actually, this is where I know there may be some resentment in it, but this is where some parents need to be. You know, money management, although they're adults, a lot of people out there, 40, 50 years old, need money management.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because they have money, but they're not utilizing it like they should. And how do you teach money management, I say, to individuals? You say, well, you got to read the Wall Street Journal, or you got to read the section on business and finance in the newspaper. The average person never do that.
If you have time to go on your phone and, you know, everyone has smartphones now and look at TMZ and the gossip sites, you have time to have the Wall Street Journal app, the business magazines, Fortune magazine, Money magazine, Black Enterprise magazines.
Right.
So a lot of those are electronic as well.
Right.
So people have laptops and computers and tablets. So there's really no excuse for you. Yahoo has Yahoo Money section. So it's everywhere. But again, it's a mindset shift.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that makes it difficult. is the mindset and the environment that the youngster is in, both home and in school.
Because we're a lot of people are taught to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah, right.
And
Exactly.
so if that's all you know, that's all you know, and that's what
That's what
you're
you strive
programmed to
for.
do. And you know, habits are hard to break. There are a lot of people in habits that they really don't want to be in, but it's hard to get out of.
Yeah.
So it's a very slow process, which again is why I say you catch them young and start to
Okay,
instill those
we're
things.
going to
in
wrap
them.
it up with you telling us advice about money management, about getting involved, and being honest with yourself, you know.
So, you know, you have to acknowledge,
And where you're located. And
you have to acknowledge that you have money management issues or challenges. I had to acknowledge that with myself. You know, I didn't spend unwisely, but you know, debt was an issue. And so at some point I had to, you know, admit to myself, you know, I need help. You know, I have to move forward, and I don't want to be, you know, going into retirement living in debt. And so it starts with accountability
accountability.
and self-awareness. And then once
That's number 2.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the will to make change happen. It's never too late. As long as God gives you breath, you have the ability to make change happen. And some people get in the mind and say, oh, I'm too old now, or I've been here for too long, it's going to take forever. But even if it takes baby steps, when you start to see progress, that's your motivation.
Okay, tell us a little bit about the book.
So my first book, Detox Your Life, Building a Healthy Relationship with Yourself and Others, it focuses on getting rid of those mental and emotional toxins that keep you stuck. So in addition to CEO stand for Chief Executive Officer, it also stands for Chief Encouragement Officer, because that's what I do. I encourage people, you know, to see beyond their current circumstances and to see that you don't have to stay where you are. Your current situation is not your final destination. And so the book gives examples, real life, some of my real life examples.
Good.
And it's the purpose is to encourage people to not beat yourself up.
Right.
Recognize that you're not
There's
alone.
enough people out there beat
Right,
up.
exactly. And so that's why in the book I do share I'm very transparent on some of my own personal struggles and issues that I've had, because oftentimes we think we're in it all by ourselves, and we're not in it all by ourselves. So that sometimes keep us stuck because we're like, oh, I'm such a failure, nobody else is going through this, when in fact.
Well, give us some preparation that helped you to get where you are writing books.
So I've always, even as a little kid, my parents, you know, would get calls from the schools because once I finished doing schoolwork or finished taking a test, I would go around and want to help everybody else. So I think it was in my DNA to want to help people. And so I started writing a blog years ago as a man and woman thinketh, because I believe in the power of positive thinking. If your mind can conceive it, you can achieve it. And so from the blog, I was a member of a radio show called The Third Eye Open, and if people are familiar with what the Third Eye Open means, and I would host roundtables and bring people together. And so from there, I said, you know, I should write a book. You know, it'll reach more people, not just people within my vicinity. And also as a motivational speaker, it's a part of your, you know, your resume. And I think it's very beneficial to have something that when you're talking to people and trying to encourage people, you can also share something that they can take away with them.
Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Turner, for being here. And I think Ms. Turner brought out one of the key things is money management. And you can use everybody can use money management, okay? There's no one out there, no matter how much you make, you still need money management.
Yes.
This has been Ed Brown. See you next time. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.